Joining us live this morning to further explain is trial and compliance attorney Seth Berenzweig. Good morning to you, Seth. Thank you so much for being here with us on Live Now from Fox.
My pleasure.
So a lot of eyes on this hush money trial. For the viewers tuning in who aren't familiar with this case, could you bring us up to speed, please?
Sure. So this is a case involving 34 felony counts of falsification of business records. And the theory of the case is really relatively simple. And the story goes like this. In the aftermath of the Access Hollywood tape release, where the soon-to-be president at that time, Donald Trump, was facing a backlash and a significant challenge based upon that kind of release of information, the allegations are that Mr. Trump engaged in a conspiracy to falsify business records with Alan Weisselberg, the CFO of his business, as well as of course, the attorney of the business enterprise, to be able to create falsified business records to conceal fraud of elections, to be able to try to hide campaign finance that was underneath the plumbing of all of this. And Michael Cohen was the attorney who helped plug this in. So you can think of it really as a triad of those three individuals. And within the triad are these 34 felony counts. And really, it is pretty simple because you have the invoices, you have the checks that were actually signed by Donald Trump, and all of the underlying records for that. So what they're doing is the prosecutors are trying to step up what would ordinarily be misdemeanors into what is known in New York as a Class E felony by saying that it was a crime intended to conceal a crime. And today is the beginning of jury selection in the case.
Seth, this is a case that has gotten a lot of media attention, a lot of people knowing about this. With jury selection beginning today, would you think the attorneys would want the jury to have seen all of the media coverage and know about all of this? Or would you think they would hope to have someone from Timbuktu who hasn't heard anything about this case so they can be completely unbiased?
Well, it's the latter, although that's going to be tough in today's media world, right? So really, from a jury perspective, the most important and controlling factor is whether someone can be open-minded and fair in order to be able to consider the evidence in the case. Now, more specifically, in terms of the jurors that each side will want to see, although there's a lot of tea leaves being read in terms of what some people say for jury selection, I believe that Mr. Trump will probably prefer to have men on the jury. I think that the prosecution would prefer to have women on the jury. The prosecution will probably want to have people who have a higher degree of education, and vice versa for Mr. Trump. This is going to be a process that will probably take a couple of days. Some have predicted that it will take all week. I don't think it's going to take the entire week. I think we'll probably see opening arguments by the latter part of the week. But one of the reasons why today is going to be so telling is that we'll be able to see the pace of jury selection and the objections, and that will give us a way to predict out whether or not we'll see opening arguments by Friday, which I think is frankly likely to be the case.
Seth, I want to ask you, with your expertise, how long could this potentially go? Because the former president has not held back, calling this a witch hunt. We do know this is happening amid this election season, even though despite all of this happening, he is leading in the Republican side. So wanting to know if this does continue, if this does stretch, could this have a negative impact on him?
Well, thus far, these trials have had no negative impact on him as far as the polling is concerned, as far as his standing in the party is concerned. Unfortunately for Mr. Trump, this one case, which indeed may be the only case that goes to trial before November, does present the risk of years in prison. So although from a political standpoint, he's been able to lean and leverage into this, certainly he has risks and inherent criminal liability. Now, as far as the length of the trial is concerned, I believe that the trial will probably run a little bit faster than has been predicted. It's up to 8 weeks. I think it's probably going to be a little bit closer to 6 weeks. One of the goals of the prosecution in this case is to keep the case tight, to keep the case concise, to have it be something that the jury can follow. And also, I think that the defense isn't going to have a lot of witnesses. They're really going to focus on witness credibility and to attack that. You can imagine, for example, that when Michael Cohen takes the stand, they're going to have a field day with cross-examining him in terms of his credibility because he's already done time himself. But on balance, I think that the trial will probably take approximately 6 weeks.
Well, Seth, truly a pleasure speaking with you this morning here on Live Now from Vox. Your dialogue and expertise, truly appreciated. Is there anything else you'd like to add before I let you go? Sometimes with these trials, there are things we might not pick up on that, of course, you would pick up on with your background. Is there anything we need to be keeping a close eye on?
Well, one of the things that I would keep a close eye on is really the tempo and the content of the opening statements. As we've discussed this morning, I think that it's more likely than not we'll hear that by Friday, certainly by Friday afternoon, I predict. Look for the opening statements. The opening statements are going to be a big tell in the case. It's going to lay a pathway for the prosecution to be able to lay out its theory. And as they do that, that will probably also be a very interesting tell in terms of the overall architecture and how they're going to build that case against Mr. Trump. So this is certainly a moment in history, and we'll start to get more clues in terms of how the prosecution lays out its case in the latter part of this week.
Definitely a moment in history. Seth Berenzweig, thank you so much for joining us this morning on Live Now from Fox and sharing the details of this jury selection. Of course, we'll be checking back in with you as all of this unfolds. You enjoy the rest of your day.